Hello, everyone. Welcome to Your World or Mine. Show me yours and I'll show you mine. And as you know, I'm an alien. I'm from another planet. And this is one of my first visits on your planet Earth. And today we have Colin here with us. Now, Colin, welcome to Your World or Mine. I'm really fascinated to hear what your passions are about.
Well, thank you. It's lovely to be here and have this opportunity to share something, a little something about my world. I suppose as you can see with my grey hair, I've got a few years under my belt, and it's taken me a while to really find what my passion is. And the passion I have today, and has been, even though I hadn't realized it throughout a lot of my life, is about listening. And usually when I say that, I get a mixed reaction. They look at me as if to say, what do you mean listening? We all listen, don't we? And, you know, we've got two ears, and often they'll put two ears like that. Or they'll look at me and they'll just go, what are you talking about? And it's only when I ask them the question, which is, when was the last time you felt really heard? Does it cause them to stop and think and wonder, wow, when was the last time I felt really heard? And they start to then realize that we don't really listen very well at all. We hear very well, but we don't listen very well. And it's become, you know, more and more people I talk to, events I facilitate and or present at, realize that every one of us wants to feel heard, wants to feel valued, and know that our contribution, whatever it is, however small or however large, however grand or whatever it is, wants that to be recognized and validated, and to know that they actually matter. And it's a skill that can be learned. And I think the more that people do take it on and do become aware of it and to understand it, it changes both their lives, the lives of those around them. That could be family, children. It impacts on friends, and it impacts across the workplace with the people you work with your customers, with your suppliers. And I think it's life-changing.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the gist of where my passion lies at this moment.
It's very interesting what happens in my body, because on my planet we are very sensory.
Yeah.
And we began to realize that when we listen, it's not only through these two apparatuses that's sitting there, the whole body is participating in listening.
Yes.
So on a sensory level, my cells has a little tingling in it, because it's hearing what you're saying. So it's beyond just the hearing of the ears. My body resonates when I get this tingling thing in my cells. It resonates of what it heard. So it resonates with that.
Yes.
And the question I want to ask you is, if you look at what's currently happening in your world, generally speaking now, how do you think did the possibility of not listening well, not being heard, as you mentioned, what effect did that have on the world currently?
I think if you just take the two key things that are going on in the world today, one is the President Trump in the US and how he came into power, and also the effect that's had, and the effect that in the UK, where I am, the impact of what we call Brexit, which is to leave the European Common Market. And in both cases, both of those events have polarized sides. And it's not been a lot of gray in the middle. It's you're either one side or the other. And in spite of the fact that this can happen in families or in the same workplace, these are intelligent, well educated, well thought of people who are now sitting opposed from the other, and not seeking to ever understand them, but to think that they're actually stupid for even considering the other side. And I use a very simple analogy of a number on the floor. It's drawn on the floor, be it, let's say, on the sand, so there's a mark in the sand, or it's on a floor. And on one side, the person is looking at it and they can see the number 9 really clearly. The person on the opposite side is looking at the number and they can see a number 6 clearly. And both of them are shouting at the other, saying, "You're stupid. Why can't you see this as a 6? Why can't you see this as a 9? What it does need is one of those people to go to the other side and say to them, "Look, we're obviously not making headway here because we're just throwing abuse at each other. You seem like an intelligent person. Help me understand why you see us a 9 and I'm seeing a 6. And what's interesting is when that happens, the relationship changes, both sides relax, both sides are more open to thinking and being more collaborative. And the likelihood is very high that the person would then go with the other one to the other side and say, "Help me understand why you see that number as different to me." And therefore you start to see the world very differently, because it's never black and white. It's never that black and white. So the opportunity to step out of our own ego and go to the other side and say, what's it like to be you? What's it like in your world? And maybe also when they're sharing that world with you, to repeat it back to them. So what I'm picking up is you're seeing this, you're seeing that, you're feeling this, you're feeling that. And they're going to go, yeah, that's right. You're starting to feel what I'm feeling. You're starting to see and hear what I'm seeing and hearing. And that's where we become empathic to each other, from one to the other. And it's reciprocal. When somebody is that empathic to you, it's very difficult not to be empathic to them. And when you do that, the relationship changes. It deepens, and yeah, it becomes more fulfilling. We're also prepared to allow, accept, acknowledge, go with whatever the other is doing. So there's a much better relationship. And I believe that done well, listening can actually reduce the overall divorce rate in the world. That's the impact this could have. I think it could bring conflicting parties together if only one would start. So that's my immediate thoughts.
Wow, there's so many things that emerges as I'm listening to you, which I'm curious about, and I'm worried I'll forget some of them. But the one thing immediately that I do want to mention out of what I'm experiencing when you're sharing that is the word you used, go with.
Okay.
Because just those two words, in my interpretation, immediately shows there's some kind of flow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with you, so there's no obstruction. Like when I don't listen to you, I'm resistant, there's obstruction like this. So nothing else can happen from that. It's immediately, no, I don't want to listen to you, I don't want to hear what you're saying, because I'm so right, whatever it is, what I'm feeling on my side. Yeah. But I'm not allowing this, whatever is happening, to grow into something else. I'm stuck in this moment because I'm not listening and not hearing properly. But when you just take the moment to, you don't have to let go of your experiences, your wisdom, your views, your opinions, doesn't matter what you want to call all these things. But for that moment to go with that person, like you said, like stepping in their shoes and go with them to see what wants to happen. For you, not for them, for you, because it expands your experience. And you will always have the possibility to say that I can resonate with, I will take that on for now. The other one I'm not so sure about, but let's shelve that. But I'm not just cutting it off straight away.
Yeah.
And the other one, I won't jump into the fire if you ask me to jump into the fire. So it's very simplistic things, but it's that flow that then leads to something else that no one knows what could happen because it's open.
Yes.
It's not a closed system. And you so beautifully mentioned the impact on relationships, and you mentioned divorce, for example. And the other one that came up for me immediately was the workplace.
Yeah.
Because from our visits here on your beautiful planet, it's very clear that in the workplace, there's so much dissonance also because people don't listen. Vice versa, it's not one party's right and the other is wrong. And once somebody's being hurt as well, it also creates fear in the others, perhaps, that they want to control and are afraid they will lose the control. So they don't allow others to be hurt. They don't want to hear them. But just taking a step back, again, it creates an open space for something else to happen. When you're willing to listen to somebody and allow that to take on its own life, and then to see what wants to happen. And it's extraordinary the effect it has on every human being and every person on the planet. And likewise across creatures as well.
Yeah.
We don't hear the pain of what other creatures are going, living organisms are going through, because we live so in this box of this is me and I'm this righteousness thing. Whatever I believe is right, and when I don't want to listen to somebody else, I'm staying in my box. I'm not opening the door for anything else. But you also I want to take it a little bit further, because you mentioned Brexit and Trump. Now, considering those two happenings that you said created polarization and shaking a little bit the whole world up and the way people were thinking, I want to take it now to cross-generational issues, like where generations don't understand each other. They don't want to listen to each other. And the impact of that, what would you say is the impact of this inability to learn to listen from a young age on one's life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. I'd be interesting. I will answer that question. Just to go back on a couple of things that you said earlier. Charles Essenstein, he's got a lovely short video which talks about what is it like to be you. And he not only talks about saying that question to people, but asking that question of nature and of animals. So to a tree, what is it like to be you in this world? A river, what is it like for you to be in this world? And also helping, by doing that, helps him get in touch with what he as a human, the impact we have on a river, on a tree, on the air that's around us. So it's a really nice one, and it is again all to do with being empathic towards everything, because it is all connected. I think we get, if you look at just going back to your original the question, if you look at the different modalities of communication: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And of those four, the one that we use most of all is listening. But the one we get the most training on or teaching in is speaking, and then I think it's writing and reading. But very little, if any, is given to the formal teaching of listening, because it's assumed that we've got two ears, we can hear, because unless you're audibly impaired, everyone can hear. And therein lies the challenge. So when you, as you rightly said, when you listen not just with your ears, but with your whole being. And often being very still and very quiet in yourself enables you to be there for another person and to hear them completely. So if all you're doing at the same time as hearing them, you're on your mobile phone or on your computer, or you're thinking of other things, all you're ever doing is going to be able to hear their words, not what they're saying. So I use a simple phrase, which is we hear from, so it's coming this way. We listen to, which means putting our attention on the other person. So as we go through life, we get conditioned to believe that we get rewarded for talking, not for listening. And sadly, that's the way it's always been. And so I'm kind of pushing against that. And I think you're absolutely right, that if we can help children at a younger age to listen, they know what this is about. I was blessed to give a talk at a school with 14, 15-year-olds. And one of the questions I said to them was, so they're working in small groups, so write on a flip chart, what are the things that happen when you don't feel heard? And what they did, this particular group did a beautiful little line drawing of the different stages you would go through. And at the end of it could result in taking your life. And it was very profound, the way they presented it and everything. And, you know, you can see how step by step, people feel more and more lonely, socially disconnected from their family. And in the end, it's like, what's the point? Whereas if they're feeling heard, feeling valued, feeling that their thoughts matter, they're not going to go down that road. So I think you're absolutely right. The more we can engender listening, I think we're taking meditation into schools more and more. It's becoming more mainstream. Organizations before, if you talked about meditation, they say, okay, yeah, the door's there. Whereas now they're embracing it and believing that it has really positive outcomes for their staff. Positive outcomes for us individually, children learning meditation every day, or even just experiencing it for 5 minutes in the morning, or and in the afternoon. They take it home with them. It becomes a practice. It becomes a way of being, to just quieten myself down. And what's lovely is if you quiet and still yourself to see others, and others quieten themselves to be seen, it feels, as I'm describing it, it feels like this beautiful sunlit day, this lovely calm lake, which is very, very still. And all you can hear is just nature. That's what really settling and quietening ourselves down to be seen and to see others is like.
Just sensing deeper into it and receiving it from you, of what you just shared. Thank you. And again, my cells respond, my body responds, sensation-wise. And as you're speaking about the children and the younger ones, we refer to them, ones who came more recently, is that in the current world, they hear negative words so early, so much, like 400 times a day. A toddler of 3-year-old hears the word no.
Yeah.
So they're not heard necessarily. Maybe they're doing something else too that they hear the word no. So it's negative things coming to them the whole time. Don't do that. You shouldn't do that. Things like that. So that creates fear, especially in the body at that age.
Agreed.
And now if you take that then further, of not sure knowing what to do when, and also what to listen to. But it immediately brought, the other thing that it brought up is the fact you mentioned being seen, to see and being seen, to hear and being heard. And we, on my plan, we have another one, to receive and be received. Because for us, listening and being received goes together.
Nice.
So what just for others' sake, just to mention what that really means for us, is that I'm listening to you. I am receiving a message. So whether it's whatever sense is the most prevalent in my experience doesn't matter. But on some level, I'm receiving a kind of a message. If I'm not open to receive it, I will not hear it.
Agreed.
And likewise, the message will not reach me. So it's up to me. So it's not only what you are sharing as the speaker or the one who shares, it's the one who is listening that's actually, you could say, the instrument, a very active instrument, while you're quiet and still, to receive this information coming towards you. This experience, whatever it might be, whether it's words or just, like you say, this beautiful experience with a tree or a river.
Yeah.
But it's up to the receptor, the one on the other side, how much they are able to take in and absorb and internalize. And that's something, again, you don't learn at school. You don't learn it through parenting from your parents. You don't learn it in the workplace either. So it's a continuous thing of a block that you're not even aware of.
Agreed.
You don't even know it exists. So that when you then sit with the other and you're silent and quiet, like you say, it takes me to a question I have for you. I'm curious about that on your planet. We call it presency. So I'm present with the other or with the others.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to explain that to somebody who doesn't really know that concept and that experience itself, how would you describe it to them? Being present to somebody.
Okay. So we're thinking about how one would describe presence to someone who doesn't know it.
Well, maybe a little experience. You can share a little
Yes.
experience as well.
Yes. I think this is one of those things which, without experiencing it, it's very difficult to know what it is. And so presence is very connected to present, being present. Because often we talk about someone arriving in the room with presence. And what it usually means is that they have a sense about them that they are relatable, connectable. Often there's a smile. They're very engaging. They're calm. They're smooth in the way they go about their business. But if you take it, the way I would describe it would be to, first of all, to almost like in a mini meditation, I would ask them to close their eyes, and first of all to notice how they're sitting in the chair. So where are the touch points? Where are your hands touching each other, touching your legs? Where your legs are or your feet are touching the floor, where your bottom or back might be touching the chair. So you start to get in touch with some of the senses that are going on, but also to start to listen to the sounds that are nearby. And as you start getting in touch with them, you notice that they come and they go. And to notice then those sounds that are farther away. And also, obviously, to notice my voice or the sound of my voice, the words that are coming and going. And if you sit there, the way it's worked for me is I start to open up, the whole of my mind expands, and I become aware of all of the sounds, and I'm present to notice the sound before it arrives. So how do you hear the bell before it starts ringing? And it's with that going on, you become fully present and much more widely present to what's the sounds and the sensations. So how do we stay with the sounds and sensations? and not get drawn to the thinking and the thoughts that take us away. And it's not to say that we're trying to stop the thoughts, because if you've ever tried to stop something, you're always going to be focused on it. So noticing each time that the thought comes and allow it to pass through and to get back into the sounds or the sensations, which might be the feelings you have or the breathing that you're doing. And each time, look at it like building muscle in the gym. You know, you don't just turn up there and go, I'll just do one repetition and I'm now strong. It's a combination of regularly going and doing regular reps of it. And the same is true with meditation. They say that when you start doing meditation in those first few times, you suddenly think, it's no, I'm not going to do this meditation. I just think so much more than I've ever used to. When in fact, all we're doing now is you're hearing the number of thoughts that you have. So once you start to realize that actually I do have a lot of thoughts that come up, but thoughts come and go. So allow them to just pass through, and it's okay. And bring you back to the present again, to the words, the coming and going, the sounds, the sensations that are inside, the way you're touching and things like that. And if you focus on that, it'll keep you in that present moment. Now, the more you stay in the present moment with the other person, the more you're going to be aware of what's going on for that other person. And you'll hear things, I say hear things, you'll hear things other than words, because you'll feel them. And at times, it's happened to me with, when I was walking with my partner, and we were beside each other, so walking in the park, and she said something, but I sensed something different. It was more than just the words that I picked up. And I turned to her and just really looked her in the eyes and said something like, what's going on? And she just burst into tears. And so my listening had created a space that felt safe. This is presence for her to relax and to allow what's coming up for her to come up, and then to share it. And the more we're able to share things like that come up, they're very, very healing for that person.
You know what I hear? When you said, I allowed myself to follow the process and dip into what you were sharing, how to become more present, the present, seeing and then becoming more present. Yeah. And now listening to your sharing about you and your partner, it brings me back to what you said in the beginning of relationships.
Yeah.
And that's across all types of relationships. And what really emerged in that moment when you were sharing about your partner was that if only, and we don't really like to use those words if only, because we just do it, don't if only. But imagine what the world could be like, what could relationship be like when that space is created, because what I felt was a space that you were creating.
Yeah.
For the other to express in whatever way is natural to them and authentic to them, but it's non-judgmental from your side.
Agreed.
So your intention, you don't have a hidden agenda to expose the other person's fragility and vulnerability, but you're allowing a beautiful space for the other one to express themselves. So it's non-judgmental. That's for us unconditional love, because you create a space, because you have no intention to evaluate what the other is feeling.
Yes.
It's simply allowing them to share whatever it is they want to share.
Agreed.
Which is very different from when I listen to you with a purpose, or hearing you with a purpose of evaluating or identifying with what you're saying, or validating what you're saying, which is completely something different. because some person has a preconceived idea or an agenda of why would I want to listen to, because I want to get something from it. So there's the taking thing. But you explained it in experience now, where it's about creating that beautiful space of almost nothingness, yet containing everything that's possible in that moment to emerge. And that's where I felt my body as well. And it's very interesting. I want to share with everybody where I felt it. Most, I felt in my feet. And where I am now, it's winter, so it's chilly, it's cold.
Okay.
So I'm wearing boots, which I don't necessarily like to wear because I prefer to walk around more barefoot when possible, barefoot when possible. But I'm feeling it in my feet, tingling. When you were sharing this beautiful space, you were creating it. Not sharing, you were creating it through your gentle meditation, visualization experience. Which brings me to something that I think most people most probably don't realize, is that when you truly are listening to somebody and you create such a beautiful space for something to happen, doesn't matter what the circumstances are or the environment's about, it brings stability too for the other.
Yeah.
It's a grounding energy, and it happens spontaneously.
Yeah.
And that is most beautiful. Now my whole body responds to that, because in terms of relating to each other and to everything around us and everyone around us and the world itself, which we create for our experiences, that sense of stability will make it much easier for me to share what's truly going on inside of me.
Yes.
Then when it's not there.
Yeah.
And everybody will not necessarily experience it like I do. Doesn't matter, we're all very different.
Agreed.
But that sense is still there. The fact that it's there doesn't matter how we experience it. So if you don't feel this in your feet when you went through this most beautiful experience with Colin, in the future and now when you're re-listening and re-watching this video, is your body will give you other chances and maybe other ways of showing you this feeling of groundedness, of safety, of being present.
Yeah. Yeah. Each person will be different. And just because you experience in that way, that's fine. Others will experience in a different way, and others will not experience anything at all.
And that's also okay.
And that's also okay. Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a couple of things that I was thinking then. One was that Brené Brown, who's done some amazing talks, I suppose another point actually, when she comes on, I've been able to see her live 2 or 3 times, and I'm moved by her before she even speaks. That's presence for a start, right? She talks about, she describes it as the let's say I won't use the word she uses. She calls it the SFD, and I'll let you use your own imagination of what that first word might be. It's something first draft, and it's not a good word, first draft. And it's something that we make a story up straight away about when somebody says something, we make a story up. And what she says is that almost every single time that story is not a good story. And it usually ends up being pushed against ourselves, taken on by ourselves. So for example, when somebody is suddenly not listening to us, and we know they're not listening, our first thought is that we must be boring. We must be wrong. We must be this, we must be that. When in fact, it could be that the person has just had a thought that he's just forgotten his son's birthday or his anniversary or something like that. And suddenly his thought has gone somewhere else. Make sense? Mm-hmm. And there's another point relating to the way we respond to other people. And a very good coach, a gentleman named Abudi Shabi, I was listening to one day, and he made reference to something called a trestle table. We use it for, it's a very lightweight table. You might put some food on it, but you would never sit on it. We use it in this country for wallpapering. And he said, some people are like a trestle table. You say something to them and they react, they fall down, they try and get you to stop saying what you're saying. And we test the other person all the time with what we're sharing. So we start to share some things with someone, and depending on how they respond or react, we will continue telling them more, or we'll tell them less. We know there's a point. Whereas he said, if you could be like a brick wall that will not move, so whatever you share, that will be okay, and it's not judged, and it's not evaluated. It's recognizing and acknowledging, first of all, the courage to share that, but also that this is your life and that it is okay for you. And I had another instance with my partner, and without going through all of the details, it felt like completely out of character, the way she responded to someone. So I didn't say anything until we walked, as we were walking away, I just said to her with a very gentle question, what was going on for you there? And she stopped and looked at me and she went, oh my goodness, as you've asked that question, I've now realized what was really going on. And then she was able to share what was going on. And it was like, now I really understand why you reacted the way you did. Even though it felt, in my mind, wrong, I can understand. So I was able to be empathic that had I had the experiences that she'd had, it's entirely possible I would have reacted in exactly the same way. And that, being able to sit in that place is so, I was going to say so powerful, but I don't mean powerful in the way of controlling or oppressing, but actually so life-giving that she refers to it even now when that happened. And the way I responded made it easy for her to share what was really going on and to know that she wouldn't be judged by it.
You bring up an extremely important point, especially for the ones who came more recently. With what's happening currently on social media, for example, a lot of verbal abuse,
Yep.
A lot of bullying. If we thought that there was lots of bullying at schools, social media takes it to another level because it's not a physical
Agreed.
interaction. And again, we get triggered, we get stimulated, things get activated in ourselves when somebody else shares something, whether it's visual or whether it's just words, or whether it's auditory.
Yeah.
But the important part is what you're sharing. I'm really delighted by that, about this brick wall versus this trestle table. And the way in my world, how we would share that, to have a physical experience about it, just come back to yourself in that moment when you realize you are triggered.
Yeah.
Because when you are triggered, you're under somebody else's influence. You are not this true best self of yourself. And whether
Agreed.
you know what this best self is about or not doesn't matter. But your body is always an instrument for you to test and to bring you back to yourself. So when you feel you get triggered, whether it's anxiety building up or anger or resentment, or you just want to lash out, no, it's not the real true you. It's just part of you that now resonates with what we're able to share. And it's not necessarily your best part now responding, you're reacting.
Yeah.
And to come back to yourself, a very simple thing to do is to rub your hands together in that moment when you start recognizing.
Okay.
Rub your hands together and feel the warmth between your hands, even if they are cold. And put your hands on your belly button.
Okay.
And take a deep breath in your belly button. In that moment, you cannot think. Because it's your thoughts that make you what you think you heard or what
Yeah.
you think you saw that makes you then react
Yeah.
by that trigger. But just coming back to your own body in this way and taking a deep breath into your belly, when you take a deep, slow breath, you cannot think. It's impossible.
Agreed. I like that. It's a really nice
And
way.
especially for our ones who came more recently, if you do see something on social media, you are not able to listen to really what's being said. Because some part of you is reacting. It's mostly our wounded parts that's reacting to something
Agreed.
else.
Agreed.
And to remember, there's this amazing, best, incredible self of yourself inside of this body of yours. And these listening ears that Colin so beautifully tells us about today is part of this best self. To be able to stand back and to hold a space for somebody else like you just shared, which is non-judgmental. If there's no judgment there, it's safe. So that when you go into these reactive spurts on social media, don't react immediately. Just remember to breathe and to do this. Come back to the body. And then listen, look again at what you've seen in text or heard through audio, whatever way it's been communicated.
Agreed.
Because always remember that each 8 billion people on this beautiful planet has their own thoughts, their own experiences.
Yeah.
Whatever they share comes through their little window, not
Agreed.
because of what 8 billion people can see and experience.
Agreed.
So the chances are that whatever somebody shared is not directed at you, even if they name you.
Yeah, they're just putting words to the trigger.
Yes. And
or how they've been triggered.
Yeah, and it's up to you now how you're going to respond to that. And your beautiful meditation, I want to link it to the meditation. Because in a meditation can be 3 seconds. It doesn't need to be 5 minutes even.
Agreed.
For you just to come back into this beautiful body of yours where you're living in, that you do not need to react. And you can really start hearing what somebody else is saying, and you can start feeling into their pain, but not taking it on. It's not yours.
Yeah.
Because that's what real empathy is about. Empathy is not about taking on everybody else's stuff. That's not empathy. Empathy is the ability to be present, this beautiful experience you just shared with us, to be present with somebody else, and to hear and listen to really what's going on for them, and then allowing them to share that if they want to, if they feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But it's really not your stuff, but you're making the space for it to happen, which is
Agreed.
most beautiful.
Yeah, that's spot on. I have a phrase I use, which is hurt people. Yeah. So, and it also reminds me of a good friend of mine, a lady called Molly Barker, who's in the US, and she had the experience of exactly that, somebody being really abusive to one of her posts. And her first thought was, stuff you, I'm going to just cut you off, disconnect, you're not my friend anymore. But she did exactly what you've done. She stopped and thought, that's my reaction. What is the best way to respond? And so what she did is that she wrote to him. She found an email and she was able to email him. And she said, I've read what you've written. I'm curious as to what you mean and why you've said what you've said. And I'd like to meet you. And I'm happy to come and buy the coffee. And after a few toing and froing, because he couldn't believe this, they met. And she did exactly what she said she was going to do. She wanted to understand where he was coming from. And she acknowledged where he was coming from. And then he apologized for the way he'd written it. And they'd become friends. And so it's very easy for us to lash out to someone who's hurting. And even if afterwards we say sorry, the impact of that attack will still be there. So there's somebody recently who's been late to regularly late coming to my coaching session. And whenever I get there, say it's 11 o'clock, I'll send them a message about 5 past and say, hi, I hope I've got us in the diary to meet at 11. Hope everything is okay, because I do not know what's happening for him. It could have been literally on his way, he got a call from his wife or partner, whatever, to say something's happened. And he's literally just had to go there. And he didn't have time or the thinking to call me. Had I gone, you're late, this is the 3rd time you've been late, I'm not happy about this, etc., etc., and something bad had happened, you know, he doesn't reply for a day, and then he sends me a message like, sorry about that, blah, blah, blah. How do I feel? And how is that relationship changed as a result of me lashing out? So I'm not saying, you know, it's difficult at times to not react, of course. But the more we can do what you suggest, rub hands, or just count to 10, which is a favorite, or just to notice that we've been triggered, that we're reacting, how would be a better way to respond would be really helpful. In, you know, there's a lot of, you know, lots of courses on how to resolve conflict. But how about we can create space so that we don't have the conflict in the first place? That would be nice, wouldn't it?
That would be wonderful. You make me curious now. I want to hear about, just briefly, about your experiences that you share. You mentioned your coaching clients. Because we don't learn, which is clear, we don't learn how to listen. We're never getting inspired how to listen or encouraged to listen. So for somebody who really wants to explore this, whether it's an individual or an organization or a group of people, do you share listening type workshops, coaching sessions?
Yeah, it could be, the challenge, first of all, is that, as I said up front, is that most people believe they listen well. So if you if you had 100 people in the room and asked them, how many of you are better than average listeners, they'd all put their hands up. It's a bit like hands up, who of you are better than average drivers? Everyone's putting their hands up, right? So I will say to them, right, keep your hands up if somebody has said to you in the last 2 weeks, thank you for listening to me. Most people put their hands down. And that's when they ask the question. So I have to take them through a journey to understand the difference between hearing and listening, and recognize that actually we don't listen very well at all. Then we can do the building up of how to listen better. And what's really odd, though, is we all know how to listen. You know, so if you're called to a family member's, dying words, you're not likely to be getting your phone out. They call you, come close, I want to tell you something. You're not going to get your phone out and say, it's okay, I am listening. So we know how to do it, right? But we choose not to, because what I said earlier about we're focusing on the talking. So the more we listen, the more we learn, and the better those relationships, connections will actually be. So I'm in a place where I can deliver typically 90-minute, 2-hour presentations, which get people through that first part. And then we can do half-day, full-day sessions on it. Similarly, I get people who come to me because they want to learn how to listen, or some of them, the one I'm referring to, what he liked is in the first session we had, he talked for almost the whole of the 2 hours, which was fine because he was able to get it off. And what he's noticed is that as he talks and he's able to, if he's heard, he calms down. And then what comes from him is very different. It's very thoughtful and very engaging, rather than the other, which is sort of thing. So, you know, I mean, one of the lovely exercises you can do anywhere with anyone at any time is offer the opportunity of 5 minutes or 10 minutes each, where all I would really say is, what would you like to talk about, or what would you like to share? And that's it. And for the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever we agree, I'm going to give you my full attention. I'm not going to be thinking of anything else. I'm going to be looking at you, open body language and listening. And you can talk about whatever you like. And if you don't want to talk about anything and just want to sit in the silence, that's fine. This is time for you. And then you switch it around, and then you have the other. And at the end of it, just offer one thing I appreciate about you. So the one thing I appreciate about you today is how well you have listened to me and given me, I felt you've given me your full attention throughout this whole conversation. And we don't appreciate each other enough. So how about when we're sending messages to our partner, just offer one thing I love about you, and do that over 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days, or just ongoing, and see what happens. Just see what happens. I've experienced it. I'm doing that. And yeah, the response is amazing.
Well, I'm a living testament of the response to what you share. My body is vibrating, my body is joyful. So what I appreciate today more than anything is that you've given me and every single human being on this planet, whether they're watching this later and engaging in it or not, it's an energy imprint on the planet.
Yeah.
About just being here now, in this moment, to be heard and to be received. As it opens up so much. And I'm really curious to see what wants to emerge through it, because in my experience, every single time something like this happens on such a conscious level, something else wants to emerge.
Correct.
So I appreciate you co-creating the space for me for something else to want to emerge. And neither of us would know in this moment what it is, and it's okay.
Absolutely. All round. Totally agree.
So Colin, thank you so much for joining us today. And
thank you.
I would like to ask you maybe a few parting words, and I think it's just the beginning for many, with an personal experience of yourself. What is it that you would tell or share with the ones who came more recently about listening? Imparting, like a message for them about listening, the wonders of listening, the beauty of listening.
I think it goes back to my first question, which was just think about, first of all, when was the last time you felt really heard and what that felt like? And be that person who hears another in the same way.
That's most beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, it's been a joy.
And Colin, thank you for bringing this wisdom into the world in the way you're doing it. And I'd really like to invite everyone who has the opportunity to engage in this, to share this forward as well, because this is one of the ways we can bring more love, peace, and understanding on this beautiful planet, and co-create a better space for all to thrive and prosper in, and to be heard, and to be listened to, and to listen to others in a very present way. So thank you very much, everyone. We look forward to seeing you soon again. Goodbye.